One season as the Pistons head coach, Monty Williams is out. Detroit firing Williams just 13 months after they gave him the largest coaching contract in NBA history. The Pistons owe Williams $65 million.
2 years ago, we seen a team lose 28 consecutive games, the worst in NBA history. Now, at that time, me, other content creators, sports talking heads, everyone came to the conclusion this might be one of the worst teams ever. Detroit fans, they were sad. They had paper bags over their heads. And Cade, he had this cold-ass quote even back then.
Yeah, we're not 2-26 bad. You know what I mean? Like, no way are we that bad. So yes, I think we can turn it around. I think we can play a lot better brand of basketball.
Now, what makes this quote so tough to me is simply where Detroit is now and obviously how this quote aged. If you actually remember the game where Detroit tied the record for the most consecutive losses, they literally played the best team and they probably should have won. Boston, they were down 20 and they needed overtime to beat them. And even through all those dark times for Detroit, they still had this guy. Literally just 2 years later, Detroit, now they're at the top of the conference. They have the longest active winning streak. And unfortunately for me, I believe we might actually be watching the worst team ever. And they don't have that guy.
We fouled when we shouldn't. We didn't dig in when they were made certain runs. That was disappointing on all of our end. We have to own that. Once we got hit, we didn't respond well.
Today is November 21st, 2025. My hometown Washington Wizards, they're 1-13 in the midst of a 12-game losing streak. 2 years ago on this same exact date, Detroit was 2-13 in the midst of a 12-game losing streak. But no, the Wizards, ours is much worse. And unless the draft gods smiles on this city and most importantly this organization, it's not really getting much better. Even through Detroit's 28-game losing streak and even with how bad they were, these were the worst point differentials at that time ever. Detroit, yeah, they were bad, but they weren't even top 5 even at that time. And they had Cade, who can legit be an engine for an offense which every team desires. Now, just 2 years later, this is what it looks like. The Washington Wizards, they're on pace to be arguably the worst team ever. The reason why I emphasize the draft gods is because last year, it was literally the exact same thing. And this is where we drafted. I just showed you the worst margin of losses per night ever. And Washington right now, they're currently on pace to be number 1. If you go down 5 spots, you literally see last year's team. Now, why is this team so bad from a basketball standpoint right now? Well, they don't really have the best coach. They're abysmal defensively. And the reason why I keep emphasizing Detroit, even through their struggle years, still having Cade, is because everything Cade provides for that team offensively is everything Washington lacks. The 2024 NBA draft, it was looked at as a relatively weaker draft. The Wizards so far, they won that draft class, and it's not really that debatable. People legit thought Alex Sarr was a bust after the Summer League, and definitely after that first half of last season. But he's come back this year with absolutely no playmaker, and he's way more efficient. He's scoring more. He was drafted to be a defensive anchor, which he is, and he's shooting 35% from deep, which is very solid for a player his size. Keyshawn George in year 2, he's been a very efficient third scoring option for this team. If you look at that draft and you look at the year 2 so far, Alex Sarr and Keyshawn George, they're the top scorers. But unfortunately, that's the good part. And Trey Johnson is going to be fine as well. But that's basically it. My last video was about Lauri Markkanen and basically how he's become a forever trade asset. Well, Washington, over the last few years, they're a clear example as to what happens when a bad organization does just that. Utah, and specifically Danny Ainge, they haven't really been that aggressive in shopping Lauri. And then to make matters worse, they attached this contract to him. Well, Washington was first, and they basically said, hold my beer, because not only did they not move their biggest trade asset in the last 5 years, they also attached maybe the worst contract in sports history to him, and consequently, they didn't really get much back. To me, the worst part about all of this, and more specifically the tail end of that Bradley Beal era, is the good players they drafted and essentially wasted clinging on to a player that did much of nothing. Washington drafted Rui Hachimura, who now somehow looks fantastic with LA. You know why they lost Rui basically for nothing? Because they wanted to pay Kyle Kuzma. Not only did they just hold on to Bradley Beal way too long, they held on to Kyle Kuzma unnecessarily long.
The trades he made 3 years ago is the reason the Mavericks made it to the finals.
With P.J. Washington, Daniel Gafford, he drafts Lively, he brings Kyrie in.
The Mavs were a mediocre team until he made those trades. He was doing a good job.
Nico Harrison recently got fired, and the one good thing that he can kind of hold on to, I guess, is he made these moves. But the only reason Nico was even able to execute those moves is because Washington let Kyle Kuzma decide, I don't want to go to Dallas. So the Washington Wizards actually gave Bradley Beal a no trade clause, and in pencil basically gave Kyle Kuzma a mini one. That's ultimately what they did at the 2024 trade deadline when Kyle Kuzma's stock was at its absolute highest. Then last year, when everything drops for Kyle Kuzma, they move him for Chris Middleton.
With the 9th pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Washington Wizards select Deni Avdija.
Oh, and in 2020, the Washington Wizards did draft this guy. You know, the guy that's tearing it up in Portland right now and probably is going to win the most improved player. And he was drafted to be a Hedo Turkoglu point forward type of player. And now he's that guy. But you want to know how you make sure he's not that guy for your team? You bring in a high usage Russell Westbrook for a year and allow him to break every triple-double record imaginable. Then after that's over, you built this fake contending team around Bradley Beal and get Porzingis and Kyle Kuzma and KCP. Then for whatever reason, even with those pieces, you basically get nothing back when you finally decide to unload them. So Deni, who might win the most improved player, this is what his opportunities look like with Washington, and this is what they now look like in Portland. This is the blueprint of how you mismanage your franchise and ultimately become the most unwatchable team in basketball. And I'm not just saying they're unwatchable. Last year, they ranked dead last as far as attendance, and this year, where do you think they are? If you look at Washington this year, Keyshawn George is leading them in assists. That's one of the lowest leaders of an entire team in the sport, down there with some of the worst offenses in the league. You combine that, a stagnant, stale-ass offense with a defense that's legitimately last in everything, and that's how you become arguably the worst team ever. Look at this schedule with me and tell me what possibly can stop this team from not reaching Detroit's bad record. Maybe Indiana, Memphis twice, I don't know. If you guys like this video, yes, I'm from the DMV, so I support this team, and they're just terrible, bro. They're all-time bad. Is this the worst team ever? Follow my social media sites, turn on post notifications, do all that great stuff, guys, and until next time, as always, stay tuned.